Welcome to Tips from Trestle. This podcast is dedicated to discussing the senior living industry with a unique focus on food, hospitality, and leadership. I'm your host, Aaron Fish. As a 25-year veteran of the hospitality industry, I've focused my work on creating exceptional experiences for the customers we serve. My goal for this podcast? Educate, inform, and inspire leaders in senior living to bring food and hospitality to the front of mind in our industry. Let's bring the innovative and passionate spirit of hospitality to everything that we do for the residents, families, guests, and employees we serve each and every day. So what are we waiting for? Let's get to it. Kate Risa has specialized in the senior living PEO industry for over 10 years and regularly supports clients with analyzing, developing, and implementing strategic HR initiatives that support workplace culture, improve employee retention and engagement, and drive occupancy. Kate has over 20 years of human resources experience across a variety of industries, holds a bachelor's degree in business administration, a master's of business degree in human resource management, a paralegal certification in employment law, and national certificates as a strategic human resources professional from SHRM and HRCI. So welcome, Kate, to Tips from Trestle.
Thank you. Thank you. Glad to be here.
Yeah, I'm excited to talk about labor challenges with you. But first, I want to get your story. I always ask people who I haven't had a chance to really talk to a lot. How'd you get into the senior living business? Because everybody's story always intrigues me.
Yeah, that's a good question. Well, my story, and I think a lot of people can relate to this, is it's always a personal story to get in, as I have had numerous people in my family with Alzheimer's. Most recently, my grandfather passed away from Alzheimer's, and that was something that really drove me to help donate to the Alzheimer's research and walk with the Alzheimer's, the walks that we do every October. But more than anything, really get in and make a difference. And I really think this industry, as I've been in it for so long, it's so rewarding. And I love being able to give back to the seniors who have given so much to me and my predecessors, that I think it's time for us to, turn the tables a little bit and be involved and help seniors live the best life that they can. So it's a very rewarding experience, and certainly it's dear to my heart.
Yeah, I think you're right. Every time I ask that question, it's always a personal story or a personal connection. I don't know that I've found a lot of people that go, well, I went to school and got a degree in senior living. And so it's just happenstance. So, I wanted to get into the labor challenges. Obviously, we as an industry have been talking about this all year long, trying to sort out, how do we do this? How do we fix this problem? Is it a fixable problem? And I know that you recently put an article out, kind of putting some of your thoughts behind that. And I wanted to kind of talk about it because I thought there was some really good things in there. And so you've got kind of 4 steps that you've put out there on how senior living operators can really try and solve their challenge with labor and staffing.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, absolutely. I mean, the 4 steps, it's not rocket science. It's really putting people first. It's taking the person instead of making it human resources. It's putting human first in the workforce. And so we put together 4 different steps that we felt like were really critical as we're listening to workers and what they find important, what they value from employers. And we've translated that into this article that we shared to try to help senior living operators, management companies, groups in this industry, in this space, so we can help promote the industry and push it forward and retain critical workers. Because as you know, and many other people know, we're facing a major shortage of workers across all industries, but more so in our own industry. I mean, if you look at right now, just I think last Friday, I saw that we have 10 million jobs open right now, and we have 6 million unemployment. So even if we filled that gap, we still have 4 million open jobs. So there's definitely a surplus, but where are all the workers? And
Right.
why are they leaving senior living? How can we get people motivated to go to senior living and stay in this industry? Because it is a really rewarding industry, really rewarding job, but we've got to figure out what to do to keep those good quality people so they don't leave us to go to competitors, go to different industries and altogether exit. So that's one of the big focuses of this article is how do you find and keep the good ones?
Yeah,
So
definitely. And so obviously, this first step, it seems pretty straightforward and obvious, but it shocks me that we have to keep saying this, right? And so that first step that you have is you talk about developing talent from within. And so, I know I talk to a lot of operators who are trying to figure out how does this work? How can we do that? How can we afford it? And so what is some of the advice that you have and some of the suggestions that you give to people you work with as they look at
yeah,
this developing talent from within?
you know, nobody wants a dead end job. Everybody wants to know something that they can look forward to. So when we say develop talent from within, we're saying give them a path, give them skills that they have skills, but build on those and give them a path, a career path, so they have a destination and they can focus on growth. One of the groups that I work with is challenged with some of this training, and they do the standard required training, we'll say. So your
Right.
state required trainings, right? We always have to check that box, but we don't do a great job of training people on how to work together as a team, how to communicate, how to work through conflict, but also give them a path for growing. If we have a caregiver who has aspirations to be an LPN or an RN someday, how can we help them shadow an LPN or an RN, or maybe we provide some sort of tuition assistance or partner with universities to help them get that certification to grow to the next level and then retain them and reward them once they do achieve that next level. That's what developing talent from within. We focus so much on recruiting externally, but we really have great folks inside our house that we should focus on how can we take their skills and bring them to the next level.
Do you, it, I always wonder if operators struggle with the idea of we're in a crisis staffing, so we can't invest the additional time because we don't have the people to do the training. It almost becomes like this vicious cycle of, well, we can't do the internal training because we don't have the people, so we got to keep recruiting. So next thing you know, all we spend all of our dollars on the external and not on the internal. Do you find that with the operators that you work with that comes up a lot?
Yeah, one of the things about our industry is we really are an industry of tradition, if you think about it. And we have continued to do the same thing for so long because think of the clients, the residents that we're serving. They're very traditional in their ways. Not our industry isn't as innovative as other industries. The first thing that I always say is technology, technology, technology. We've got to use more technology in our industry to help people, help the residents and the employees. I think from an operating perspective, one of the things that we can see is bringing in integrated systems, whether it's from, let's say, from an HR standpoint, we focus on recruiting. I am so surprised every time I talk with new groups, how many people are still doing the old fashioned recruiting.
Mm-hmm.
They go scan for resumes, they use paper applications, they do a lot of, I say manual hiring. So it's a lot of
Yeah.
paperwork. And there's so many technology solutions. Like my group has a technology solution that will integrate systems and it's so much more efficient. And a lot of times we have groups that have they have LMS programs built into their systems. So there's a lot of opportunities to do training. So you wouldn't necessarily have to hire someone to own that process. And I think it needs to be from a leadership standpoint, a lot of owners, because we can't
Yeah.
just put this on one person's shoulders. It needs to be all of the leaders. And we need to utilize technology and we need to help train our leaders on how they can focus on growing their teams.
Yeah, it's creating those efficiencies internally to be able to manage it. And you're right, the that comment about being a traditional industry and taking traditional approaches is one that I constantly kind of come up against. I talk about how can we innovate with food and offerings there. And it just,
Yes.
everybody seems to think that these ideas are some sort of like 31st century thing. And I'm just like, not really. These are things that
Oh,
everybody else is doing in other industries. So
yeah, if you
it's,
think about it, you go to a restaurant, you scan a QR code, you get your menu up. You can even order from the menu too. I know when I go to airports, I get it all the time. You hardly
yeah,
see somebody coming up. So there's
yeah,
definitely ways to incorporate that without losing the human touch,
yep,
right? So we've got to
definitely.
figure out how to incorporate technology more.
For sure. So let's talk about step two, and this is one that I'm always interested to learn what others are doing. You talk about offering competitive compensation and benefits,
Yeah.
and I'm guessing this goes a little bit more beyond kind of what you might typically see.
Yeah, and I mean, don't get me wrong. Everybody, if you ask you, me, Joe down the road, everybody thinks they're underpaid and wants more money. So, wages haven't kept up with inflation and the cost of living. So I always do advocate that I think pay needs to be analyzed, and we have things that we use internally with our communities that we do salary analysis, we do full labor analysis to make sure that we are benchmarking and that we are competitive within the industry, but also competing outside of the industry. But
Yeah,
that's not where we should stop. You can't just increase someone's wages and expect them to stay. If you have a terrible culture internally and you're not focusing on your people, they're still going to leave you, no matter how much wage, how much money you give them. But with this particular piece, with offering competitive compensation and benefits, you have the pay. But one of the biggest challenges that we're finding in our communities is providing insurance options that are affordable with the cost of healthcare going up
yeah,
nonstop. How do we bring benefit programs to frontline workers that they can afford it and it's good coverage and something that they value? The other thing that staff value and they want is this work-life balance, a greater work-life balance. And so how do we incorporate flexibility into our compensation programs, benefit programs with perhaps it's a more comprehensive PTO program that provides
right,
more flexibility, that gives them the choice. I mean, I understand that we still have residents, that we're here to serve them, and we need to make sure that we're meeting our staffing goals. But I do think that we need to take a stronger look at this. I think some of our operators hone in so much on pay and not as much on benefits. And so we're doing a test sort of study right now with one large group that we were able to bring a carve out benefits program for health insurance that's really
yes,
affordable for frontline staff. And so we're promoting and pushing that one out, and we're hoping to increase their participation rate, which ultimately our goal is to reduce the rate increases that they're receiving. So they've got low participation, high cost of claims. We're bringing this one out with hopes to be able to improve that, but it needs to be more employee centric, if you will.
yeah.
For
I was actually going to ask you about that because I was looking at some of the bullet points and some of the pieces that you guys are putting in that. You're
yeah,
talking about minute clinic care and telehealth services,
yeah,
affordable prescriptions. I mean, I think those are the kinds of things that really tackle the day-to-day healthcare needs that maybe are missing in a more traditional plan. Because you
yeah,
know, I I, if I have a cold and I need to get some sort of decongestant, or maybe I've got the flu, do I really need to go and wait and see a doctor? No, I mean maybe a phone call, a
right,
$25 telehealth call to get a prescription and
yeah.
get better is really all I need. I think there's a lot of opportunity with that. And so I think it's pretty cool that you guys are working with operators to create something a little more unique in that sense. Really
Yeah,
cool.
absolutely. We need to find a good solution for the frontline staff. They're lower wage earners. They can't afford these, $100 or more premiums.
Yeah,
So we've got to find something that's a good solution for them. So hopefully this one will be a great solution. We're excited to see the results. We should have more data after open enrollment closes.
very cool. Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
one of the things that, step three, it kind of touches on something you've already mentioned, which is kind of that technology piece, right? And how do we create something that's supporting what we need to do, but is usable for everybody. And you talk about creating that scalable HR solution as that third step in your guys's process. And so kind of talk to us a little bit about what you mean by that, and what you've been able to do on that front.
Yeah. So this is kind of a two-part thing, and I'll tell you this morning. So I'll give a plug to our Genum. I'm involved in the Women in Leadership program, and I'm participating in the mentorship series for women in leadership. And my mentor is Chris Martell with Benchmark Senior Living. And I was actually talking with her this morning because during our last meeting, we were talking about this exact topic, Aaron. We were talking about how our industry is traditional and our technology is behind the mark. And one of the things that we were talking about this morning is a lot of the things that some groups may take for granted when it comes to technology is the integrated systems. And from a scalable HR perspective, you need to have systems that talk to each other and flow for efficiency. And whether it's AP or it's procurement or it's an HRIS system, those systems need to be able to talk to each other. So you're not having to take extra time to rekey the information or shoot an email here when you could have just submitted it directly through a system. Those are the types of things that we need to look at as industry operators and management groups, how we can streamline those processes and use and embrace technology so you can be much more efficient. Because we have, I think in some cases, we have some staff that are doing those manual processes that we have technology solutions out there in the marketplace for. So the other part of this, I'll say, since I said it was a two-part piece, is when you're looking to grow as an operator, I think it's really important that you partner with an organization that can help you grow. So that way you're not having to take on all of that responsibility. So maybe it's outsourcing, like my group, we do HR, payroll, benefits, work comp, we're a PEO. And so you could outsource some of those administrative duties that really help you focus in on being strategic and driving growth. So it's really taking a step back at your operation and saying, where can I make some adjustments to be more effective and efficient?
Yeah, no, definitely. I think what you say about going out and finding the right partners to maybe do the things that you are 80% good at, as opposed to taking care of residents, which you're 100% good at, makes a lot of sense, right? And especially finding somebody that you can grow with. One of the things that I struggled with was talking about that integration of software. I would always have, when I would ask about that kind of solution, like how can we get an API that'll let my point of sale talk to my accounting software, right? There was always, for me, that made perfect sense. Like, I don't want anybody touching the data, just push it through, right?
Yeah, right.
But what would you say to I would get pushback of, well, somebody needs to verify that data before we put it in the accounting software. What would you say to maybe some of the more traditionalists that might listen and say, well, yeah, you've got to do that? What would you say to them about that piece of the puzzle?
Yeah, I think, one of the hesitancies is, I think, fear of the unknown is we just don't have enough information initially. And that's where I think, you and Aaron, you and I, we go to different events around the country and we talk with different operators. I think having a conversation and taking the fear out of it and the hesitancy and just opening your mind up to embracing the opportunity to integrate systems is going to be beneficial, just to explore it. I mean, people are naturally, we resist change in our own way, but every person needs to have their own comfort level. And that just starts with a conversation. Ask questions, make sure that you feel completely comfortable with moving forward, and trust that your supplier, your vendor, whoever you're partnering with, you have to have a level of trust with them and accountability too.
Absolutely. Let's move to step 4, because I feel like, step 4 maybe could have been and should have been step 1, but I think it's great that you guys put this in there because it's probably the most important, and you've hit on it a little bit, but that's prioritizing culture and brand. And so kind of talk to me a little bit about how you've seen this play out on the good and the bad, and why everybody needs to really focus in on this.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think it should have been step one. We probably have these a little bit mixed out of order, but I think it's a really critical point. So I'm glad that we're talking about it today. You know, in today's world with technology, people are more free than ever to express their opinions. And so you see reviews online everywhere, whether it's a good
Yes.
experience or a bad experience. People now feel empowered that they have a platform to express their opinion, and they're going to. And we know that's going to happen. So one of the things that we've done with a group is that we wanted to partner with our marketing department, our marketing vendor in this particular case, and wanted to do a study of perceptions of the brand online. So they partnered with us and we did a large study to try to find out what's the perception of this particular operator.
Yeah.
And the results were a little bit mixed. There were some great reviews, but how many people, if you think about it, how many people you go to online review websites, how many people are leaving just amazing reviews? It
Yeah.
seems, and maybe it's just me, but it seems like every time I go and I see somebody commenting on something, it's a lot of negativity.
Yeah.
So unfortunately, I mean, sometimes we have that, but I think we need to understand that and we need to push our brand and show how great our workforce is, our culture, our day-to-day job. And when it comes to recruiting, I think they need to show that the true day in the life of a caregiver, true day in the life of a dining server, of housekeeping, maintenance, whatever it might be, so we can promote those type of roles and we can help manage our brand and celebrate the things. One of the groups that I always love to go to is Discovery Senior Living. They're in Florida and they're all over the country, but they do
Yeah.
a great job of rewarding employees, having great culture events, and they promote those online, not just on social media, on their website, in newsletters, things like that. And so they're showing how fun and engaging it is to work there, and they have great turnover rate. So I think those are the types of things that we need to focus in on and show the great things about working in senior living and about working at our particular company.
Yeah. I think the idea of creating brand ambassadors with
Yes.
every employee um, really kind of stands out here, right? Because if you create the right culture inside your organization, you're going
Yeah.
to be unaware of the fact that you're probably creating brand ambassadors, right? They're going to be out telling neighbors and friends and other people, well, I love working at ABC Senior Living. Man, it's the best thing I've ever done. And that word of mouth just spreads. And I think doing something like that just kind of inherently will make you a better operator for sure.
Absolutely.
So,
Absolutely. Yeah.
so, those are kind of the four steps. What, in your experience, what would you say is out of all of the four of these, what's probably the biggest opportunity? You may have already said it, but I want to kind of reemphasize it. What's the biggest opportunity for our industry right now as we're looking at this challenge?
I think the biggest opportunity, if I look at our industry, is incorporating more technology. That's from an operational perspective. I would say that I definitely think it helps on the human resource standpoint.
Mhm.
But if we're focusing on people, there is a shift. People want today's worker doesn't just want to come to work, punch in, do their job, punch out, and go home. They want to be at work and they want to have a fun and engaging workplace, but they also want to be involved in the process. So if it's one of the things that we can do is like an employee focus group. Perhaps you have a challenge. Maybe you have something going on with residents and we're having a hard time getting call lights answered in a reasonable period of time. But we have employees who have a lot of knowledge and skills. I think
Yeah.
if you could incorporate them, you have a challenge, get their opinions, get their feedback, and utilize that as them participating in the process to solve a solution instead of the traditional model, right? Your boss makes a decision and you do it. Today's worker wants to be involved in the process and they want to have clear and regular communication from their leaders. So I think inclusiveness is going to be one key factor to continue to retain your workers.
Yeah. I call it hospitality with a purpose, right? They want to
Yeah.
know that what they're doing has value and is making an impact. And without that piece, these frontline employees that we're hiring, you're right, they're not going to just come punch a clock. Those days are long gone. for
Yes,
sure.
absolutely.
So Kate, thanks so much for being here. This was great. How can people contact you? I know you haven't mentioned your company's name, but please feel free to, because I think you guys are doing some good work. So kind of let
Yeah.
everybody know how they can get in touch with you and learn more about what you guys are doing and uh, these 4 steps.
Sure. Yeah. I work with Paychex. I'm in the senior living division with Paychex, and we do HR, payroll, benefits, and workers' comp outsourcing. Certainly partner exclusively with senior living operators all across the country. You can get in touch with me and again have a conversation. You can find me I'm active on LinkedIn. You can also email me and you can call me, certainly call or text. And I can certainly share my contact information in the notes of the podcast, and we can go
Absolutely.
from there. Definitely
Well,
looking forward to having conversations.
perfect. Yeah, we'll put all that contact information in the show notes. So, Kate, thanks again so much for all your time this morning, talking about labor challenges. Because my gut tells me it's not going away anytime soon. So, we just need to keep talking and working together and figuring it out. So,
Yep,
thank you so much for
absolutely.
being here.
Yep, absolutely. My pleasure. Thank you, Aaron. Have a good rest of the day.
So, there you have it, another one in the books. Thanks again, everybody, for listening. You can follow or direct message me on LinkedIn, where I'm always commenting and posting about food, hospitality, and leadership for the senior living industry. Or give me a follow on Twitter at AHFish or Instagram at AaronHFish. And check out my company, Trestle Hospitality Concepts, at www.trestlehospitalityconcepts.com. I'm your host, Aaron Fish, and this has been another episode of Tips from Trestle.